The Undoing of America, How Loose Gun Laws Could Lead to a Post-Apocalyptic Future. In the wake of yet another tragic mass shooting in Georgia, we find ourselves grappling with familiar questions. Why do these incidents keep happening, and what, if anything, is being done to prevent them? As the United States continues to navigate its complicated relationship with gun ownership, it becomes increasingly evident that the loose gun laws we currently live under could very well be our undoing. The right to own guns in America is a deeply embedded cultural and political issue, often defended under the guise of the Second Amendment. But this right, once intended to ensure citizens could defend themselves, has morphed into a free-for-all that places guns into the hands of almost anyone, including children. Our gun culture has been shaped not just by individual beliefs but by powerful organizations and politicians working tirelessly to maintain the status quo, despite the growing toll on human lives. The role of the NRA and gun lobbyists. The National Rifle Association, NRA, stands as one of the most powerful entities behind the push for looser gun laws in the United States. The NRA presents itself as a defender of the Second Amendment, but in reality, it operates more like a lobbying machine, prioritizing profit and influence over public safety. With significant political donations and an aggressive media presence, the NRA has managed to stymie any meaningful gun reform. Its policies, including opposition to universal background checks and advocacy for open carry laws, have resulted in a landscape where owning a gun is easier than obtaining a driver's license. Moreover, the NRA's connections with politicians are ironclad. Many of these lawmakers have become beholden to the organization through campaign donations, particularly in states with weaker gun control laws. This relationship has created a vicious cycle where politicians fight to preserve the NRA's vision of America, an armed society at any cost. The politicians keeping laws loose. Much of the political momentum behind lax gun laws comes from the South, where several governors and lawmakers consistently resist any attempts at reform. States like Texas, Florida, and Georgia, where the most recent shooting occurred, have enacted some of the loosest gun laws in the country. This is no accident. These states have become testing grounds for how much a government can deregulate gun ownership without public revolt. Governors who have embraced this agenda frequently do so with full-throated support from organizations like the NRA, ALEC, American Legislative Exchange Council, and the Heritage Foundation, all of which play crucial roles in shaping policy. Governors like Georgia's Brian Kemp, Texas' Greg Abbott, and Florida's Ron DeSantis exemplify how local lawmakers work hand-in-hand with gun lobbyists to preserve a firearm-friendly environment. Their efforts often focus on preserving stand-your-ground laws, opposing red flag laws, and expanding gun access to younger individuals, all policies that make firearms more accessible and deadly in public spaces. The quiet power of ALEC and the Heritage Foundation. The American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC, has been instrumental in drafting pro-gun legislation. This organization, funded by corporations and wealthy donors, operates by creating model bills that state lawmakers can easily introduce. These bills often favor deregulation, making it easier for citizens to purchase and carry firearms. ALEC operates in the shadows, pushing through laws that benefit its corporate backers while keeping the public largely unaware of its influence. Meanwhile, the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank, supports this push ideologically. By promoting narratives that portray gun ownership as an inherent right tied to American identity, the Heritage Foundation provides intellectual cover for politicians who want to pass pro-gun legislation but face public scrutiny. These organizations work in tandem with lawmakers and lobbyists, creating an intricate network that continuously erodes sensible gun control. The Koch brothers and their legacy. Perhaps no figures represent the intertwining of corporate interests and conservative politics better than the Koch brothers. While one of the brothers, David Koch, passed away in 2019, their influence remains pervasive. Through their network of political action committees, they have funneled millions into campaigns that support pro-gun politicians, shaping the trajectory of American politics in favor of deregulation, both in terms of guns and other issues. Their funding of groups like the NRA, ALEC, and other conservative organizations ensures that gun laws remain lax, despite the clear dangers. In their pursuit of a small government, free market vision, the Koch brothers helped create a political environment where common-sense gun reform is not only difficult but politically toxic. A post-apocalyptic future. If this trend continues, the future of the United States looks bleak. We are staring down a potential dystopia, where gun violence spirals out of control, and society fractures along the lines of who is armed and who isn't. In such a world, public spaces, schools, shopping malls, churches, are no longer safe. Instead, they become battlegrounds in an increasingly militarized society where everyone is armed for self-defense, and no one feels truly secure. As we drift closer to the possibility of a Trump-like administration returning to power, particularly with the looming threat of Project 2025, a political blueprint by conservative think tanks to dismantle many democratic institutions, the dangers of unregulated gun ownership become even more dire. A government that actively seeks to erode the rule of law could weaponize loose gun laws, creating a landscape where violence becomes the norm and dissent is met with bullets instead of ballots. The death of a nation? In this possible future, the United States as we know it could cease to exist. The unchecked power of gun lobbyists, politicians' refusal to enact meaningful reform, and the growing polarization around gun ownership could lead to an unraveling of social order. If children can get their hands on guns, and if violence becomes the solution to every political disagreement, we may soon find ourselves living in a dystopia where only the most heavily armed survive. This is the future we must work to prevent. The mass shooting in Georgia, like countless others before it, should serve as a wake-up call. If we fail to act, the post-apocalyptic vision of America is not just a possibility, it's an inevitability. The gun lobby has had its way for far too long, and now, more than ever, it is time for meaningful change before it's too late.